director and founder of Parish Peace Project.
My name is Robert Valadez, and I'm an artist.
My name is Diana Solis. I'm an illustrator, a painter, and an art educator.
My name is Jackie Almaguer. I'm a local fine artist.
Monica Resman. I'm a visual artist.
My name is Tubbs. I'm a Chicago artist. My name is Juan Carlos Perez. I'm an interdisciplinary artist here in the city of Chicago.
Bueno, soy Cristian Roldán. Yo soy artista plástico. Usualmente hago murales. Y de vez en cuando hago piezas que son canvas, una que otra escultura. Pero mayormente lo que hago son murales, lo más que me gusta hacer.
Won't You Be My Neighbor is a community exhibition that uses art as a way to talk about Chicago's changing neighborhoods. A series of tables and benches will be installed in various businesses along 18th Street in the Pilsen community. 9 local artists have been selected to paint, draw, mosaic, do their own visual representation on the set of tables and chairs. These tables and chairs will be functioning furniture inside each business. The idea is we want to invite you to come, sit down, have a conversation about the sensitive topic of change, and ultimately, we want you to get to know your neighbor.
Well, the first message is, there's a couple different ones, but the main one is to talk about how sacred community is, hence the Sacred Heart in the middle of my table, and the word comunidad and the buildings that are rising from it. As Latino or Mexican people, you know, our community is very near and dear to our hearts because it creates a sense of home. It creates a sense of kind of like commitment to each other. My second message was to talk about how, you know, Pilsen has always been a neighborhood of immigrants, even back from when it was the Bohemians, the Polish people, the Czechoslovakians. It was always an immigrant, middle-class working neighborhood. So that's what my cactus represents. You know, when I paint my cacti, it's to talk about how the immigrant is very much like the cacti, and they survive and they thrive under the worst conditions. Yet they manage to not only survive, but they thrive and give fruit, and as Chicanos, we are that fruit. The third one is the skulls that I have there. It has the pre-Columbian skull and the more modern skull, the Day of the Dead skull. And it says, Nuestro barrio no se raja, which means our neighborhood won't back down. And I feel like that's what we're doing. You know, we're not backing down. We're not necessarily, you know, accepting all the changes. You know, we have to kind of roll with the punches, but we're not backing down.
My piece has a lot of symbolism and symbols that I feel address different issues having to do with community, with change, with displacement, with culture, not and gentrification, but really in a way that it talks about the symbols as tools for having people become intrigued or noticing these symbols and saying these are important symbols. For example, I used an aspect of culinary arts. I used an aspect of our heritage and tradition and food, such as maize and corn, and having to do with one of the strong aspects of our culture, which is food. The other is the idea of dialogue. So my piece is titled Dialogue, Diálogo. And I did this by using hands and speech glyphs, Aztec and Mayan speech glyphs, because I felt that they were an appropriate and wonderful symbol. Also, they carry a lot of movement. And there are two in the table on the opposite ends. There are two hands, one holding out, going outwards, the other one receiving. So there's a give and take, a dialogue happening. You don't really see people speaking, but what you see is this exchange of dialogue through the speech glyphs. The colors represent, there's very vibrant colors. The corn has all these, they're like little towers, and it has all this color. And they represent the diversity within the idea of not just one maintained culture, but also the influx of other cultures, and how do we deal with one another. And there is diversity in that, and it can only be a good diversity if those changes happen with dialogue amongst the people who live here and the new people coming into the community.
This project came at a perfect time for me because I'd been working on sculptures that related to the city of Chicago and looking at the different wards that make up Chicago, I think there's 77, I may be wrong, but the shapes are what attracted me. So when I was given this table, I decided to focus on the Hispanic communities in the city of Chicago and the gentrification that was going on in the city. And the table basically represents the different wards broken up into different pieces, and to recognize where the Latino population is and where we're losing the Latino population. I live in Logan Square right now, and in the last 15 years, they've lost a huge portion of the community, and that really has an impact on the landscape of Chicago and why people want to live in this city because of the diversity. So basically the table is just, it's a game that I made up because I felt like having a table was about two things: eating, playing games, bringing people together. So what I did was try to create a game that both those things are happening, either one at a time or simultaneously, and that could just bring awareness to the different ways the city is broken up.
So what I incorporated into the table was pretty simple questions, 3 questions. What did Pilsen mean to you in the past? What does it mean to you now? And what do you see for the future of Pilsen? I asked different people in the neighborhood that live there now, and business owners as well. What did Pilsen mean to you before, the history of it? If you didn't live there, what was your perception of Pilsen before? Now that you're here in the neighborhood, what does it mean to you now? And what do you see in the future as Pilsen changes? What do you kind of see it growing into or becoming? So I asked those 3 questions to everyone, and I added their responses onto the actual table. I really wanted to get the people that live there, their point of view, so that someone maybe from the outside or someone who's coming in can get a better understanding of what the neighborhood really means to them. That it's maybe not just somewhere trendy to be. There's a lot of history, a lot of culture in the neighborhood, and I think that's very important to bring those points across.
Well, I wanted to explore the idea of working class people and their neighborhoods and the historical people that you might find in those places. Famous people, some people not so famous, and putting them in the same context. I chose the work of Louis Sullivan, a very famous architect. He did a lot of the early skyscrapers downtown, and I thought that would be a nice backdrop for, aesthetically speaking, to include all these other elements and to put them together into one image, but that using that device as a backdrop.
This is the fiddle, the violin of Chief O'Neill. He was the chief of police in Chicago around 1900, but he was Irish, so he played with them. And he published a lot of books about Irish folk music. This right here is a Vox Continental keyboard that was played by Ray Manzarek. The 1200 techniques turntable. Frankie Knuckles DJ. House music.
Well, I like to think that it's important for all the people of Chicago from different backgrounds to talk to each other. Certainly, we can talk about the changes and what they ultimately mean for the future of any given community, but we have to be open to speaking to each other. There's always going to be differences, we have to understand that, but we shouldn't sort of eliminate the idea of communicating in some way. And us being artists, I guess that's the best way for us to communicate with others is through the art. So that's what I'm trying to do.
So one of the questions that I asked myself was, how do you attain culture? And why are people attracted to something that is rooted in family and tradition and heritage? So I used images of ceramic pieces thousands of year old ceramic pieces from indigenous groups in Mexico. And I came across one which was a family, and they were holding on to each other. And culture is something that you need to survive, kind of like water. And then so I used this image. This image in my mind came of a well, of how you throw a bucket of water in the well to get the water, because you need water to survive. And it's the same thing with family and tradition and roots, right? And so it's like the blood of our existence, right? And so I created the image of this bucket coming down, trying to scoop some of that up. But at the same time, this image of this bucket has a double meaning, because it also looks like a noose, which also a symbol for self-destruction, kind of symbol of the deterioration of how we treat each other, and the decimation of our own moral ethics. So I have this bucket coming in, and it's kind of slowly approaching this family, and there's kind of like the reacting to that. And a couple of the chairs, and one of them has some ceramic pieces of traditional, again, indigenous ceramic pieces, and you only see segments of them, right? Because again, it's like culture is being erased, right? So you're only getting glimpses of them. In another chair, I have two individuals, right? And it asks these questions about race as well, right? Does race play a role in this issue of forced displacement of families, right? Specifically towards people of color, black and brown individuals. So in that image, you have two individuals with baskets, right? So like when you're gonna go take the harvest, right? The essence of life. And so you have one figure holding on to the other figure's hand, and it's kind of like showing it how you even approach the subject of wanting to communicate or interact in a culture that's not yours. So it's kind of like taking it, it's not using a bucket and a well to just force yourself and grab it. It's more of like grabbing this basket, and just kind of want to show the other image, This is a way that you can kind of look into and attain this culture.
El mensaje que yo puse, y está en códigos, cada imagen representa una letra y empieza están conectados uno detrás de la otra. So va como un flow, cada imagen es conectada a los honeycombs, y el mensaje que lleva es gentrification is colonization. Gentrificación es colonización. So ese es el mensaje que lleva. Y es una manera de poner ese mensaje de alguna manera para que alguien piense sobre eso, reflexione sobre eso y piense bajo qué argumento yo digo esto, bajo qué idea, bajo qué experiencia yo llevo ese mensaje.
Want to Be My Neighbor is a prime example of using creative ways to bring people together and to build bridges of hope and solidarity.
I found it as an opportunity to be part of something bigger, and to be part of the community as well, because I saw that it was going to be part of something that is near and dear to my heart, which is, our Mexican community.
My ties to the neighborhood, my family being part of the neighborhood, growing up in Pilsen, what inspired me to be an artist at a young age was actually the murals that were in Pilsen, that were there since the 70s. Seeing that as a child inspired me to become the artist that I am today.
I gravitated to this project because it was a public art project that I had never worked on. And the subject matter interests me because I had spent 10 years of my life living in the Pilsen neighborhood. And it's a place that I've always felt very connected to.
Chicago is a city of neighborhoods. I grew up in Pilsen, and there's been changes, but I thought it might be a nice idea to point out the fact that there are a lot of things that we share with other groups of people throughout the city, and to explore that theme of what we have in common. And to me, that was the most important aspect of it.
We hope that this art project helps everybody understand that Pilsen is more than a place to dine and enjoy art. Pilsen is also a place of history, culture, community, and encounter.